Welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, episode 260. On this episode of the podcast, Jen talks about how to kill ants. Wow, that has really got to mess with one's karma.
You're listening to the Careers by Jen podcast. I'm your host, Jen Swanson. This is the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. Careers by Jen is a listener-sponsored podcast, and if you like the content, please consider supporting the show as a patron. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Head over to careersbyjenn.com and click on support to learn more. Hey friends, happy Canada Day yesterday to my Canadian compatriots, and happy July 4th to my American friends and family coming up. It's a weird year for trying to celebrate, isn't it? No usual fireworks or big crowded street fairs or outdoor concerts or barbecues or all of the things that we normally would do anyhow. And here where I am, it is rainy and cold and not at all like the usual June weather, or July weather. It's July. Yeah, not usually like this at all. So it's a bit strange all around. Where I am here in British Columbia, we are just beginning to open up the care homes to very carefully orchestrated visiting for family members. And most businesses are open again with restrictions, although there are lots and lots that are or have already failed and are closed. Movie theaters are not open, neither are nightclubs or swimming pools or the water slide parks, and there's not much going on in the travel industry either. So it's all very different. What is happening around the world, health-wise, politically, environmentally, economically, with all of that, it's really easier and maybe easier than ever to have negative thoughts. And today we're going to talk about negative thoughts, but we're going to be talking about the really automatic ones, the defaults, automatic negative thoughts. But first, I thought I would like to begin by acknowledging something that I do when speaking in person, but I haven't done before on the podcast. And suddenly it occurred to me that I have been remiss. I would like to acknowledge that Careers by Jen is recorded and brought to you over the internet from the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Matsqui, the Kwantlen, and the Katzie First Nations. Automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs, as one of the founders of cognitive therapy, Dr. Aaron Beck, coined them back in the 1960s. The term became very popular in a book written by Dr. Daniel Amen in 2010 called Change Your Brain, Change Your Body. And I don't know if you've read that book, but it's a very popular book. And that's when that term ANTs, automatic negative thoughts, the acronym, became very popular. Automatic negative thoughts are the thoughts that pop into your head all the time. Your particular set of them, we all have them, but your particular set of them, the ones that you have thought so often that you don't even notice them anymore. Thoughts that might be almost so unconscious, but are powerful, and so powerful that you believe them without question. Thoughts like, I'm no good at that, or I can't sing, or I'll never be able to do that, or I suck at that, or I should do blah, 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 whatever you should do, or I can't blah, blah, blah. I'm never going to get that job. They'll pick someone else. I can't change careers now. I would never make it, etc. There are way too many examples of negative thoughts to list, and again, yours will be different than mine anyhow. But we all have them. Each one of us has a set of automatic negative thoughts that are our particular pet negative thoughts. And they come through our brains, and they are so automatic that we don't even bother to stop and question them or to ask what business they even have being there. The nerve. And I think I've said this before. This is a quote. I don't know where it came from, but I love it. This is the quote that you should not believe everything you think. Don't believe everything you think. And so that's what got me thinking about how to kill ants, how to stomp out these automatic negative thoughts. Well, first of all, why? Why should we bother if they're unconscious, if we barely think about them anyway? Why should we stop thinking these thoughts if they're so automatic and they come to us without us even thinking about them? What harm are they doing, you might be wondering? And the answer is a lot. Sometimes these ants are so insidious that we don't even realize that we are letting them stop us from achieving our goals and dreams. Your ants may be sabotaging you, and or they could be. They are negative, and they become part of your truth and your reality if you don't stop to question them. Negative thinking can also lead to anxiety, to fear, to panic, to depression, to issues of self-esteem. Negative thoughts are not a small thing, even though they may seem like it, but the accumulation of them and the persistence of them can actually be very, very detrimental to your future. And part of what I like to do is help people to move into the future they dream of and desire, and to find their purpose. And all of these negative thoughts that you actually end up believing because they're there with you all the time can impede that progress and can stop you from taking that leap, or from making that transition, or from realizing the dream that you have for yourself. Now, while it's possible, it's very possible to stop the pattern, doing that can take a lot of work. Because when thoughts, this feels a little bit like Dr. Seuss, when thoughts are thought over and over again, they actually create hardwiring in your brain. It's like what happens if you walk in fresh snow across a yard. Say it's winter, it feels like winter where I am today. You've got snow in your yard and no one has walked in it yet. When you walk across that yard, you make a track. And then if you walk back the very same way again, and then keep walking back and forth in the same footprints all that day, and then the next day, and then if there's still snow the next day, well, then you've created a path across the yard. And that path will be the easiest, fastest way to walk through a yard that's filled with snow, until and unless someone else creates a new path across the yard. And that's what it is like in your brain. Once these negative thoughts are established as a pathway, they are very, very, very easy to fall back onto. And it's comfortable and it's easy, and so you go there. And so you might think right now, what are some of the negative thoughts that I automatically think? Right? Always. What do I say I can't do? Or what do I say I'm no good at? Or what do I say, you can think about them. There's probably something that you default to regularly. And once these defaults are established, you will go to them again and again and again. It becomes like a neurological loop. And most of the time, you might not even realize that you are thinking of them. And so it's the idea that nerves that fire together wire together, right? So you have a created system in your brain, a neurological pathway that has been created with these negative thoughts that is going to take time to change. And it is possible. It is possible to change them, but it takes a little bit of work. So let's start by looking at 9 different kinds or categories of ants, of automatic negative thoughts that you might be having. And then we'll talk about how to start killing these thoughts before they can do their damage, or to start undoing the damage that they may already have done. So there are 9. There are probably more than 9. I've read an awful lot of articles and listened to people talk about automatic negative thoughts, and there are multiple different categories, but I pulled out 9 that I thought were pretty common, and you may resonate with some of these. So the first kind of automatic negative thought is the cut and dried thinking, the all or nothing, the black or white, the always or never. When you use words, even the words that you use. And when I took my training in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, we talked a lot about language and the language that you use and the words that you use. So you might even pay attention to the negative words that you use. Are you somebody who says, I always blah, 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 or I never blah, blah, blah. Everyone does blah, or no one does blah, right? That's very cut and dried. There's no in between. There's no room for possibility. There's no room for ambiguity. There's no room for sometimes maybe somebody does this. This is challenging language and challenging thinking. I can never do blah, blah, blah. It's probably not true. But cut and dried thinking is one kind of automatic negative thought. So just pay attention to whether or not you say things like that and what the words are that you use. If you use very, very concrete words like always, never, everyone, no one, then you might say, there's a cut and dried thought. The second kind is an automatic negative thought that makes it personal. That means that you are taking everything personally when whatever's happening may have nothing to do with you. So somebody walks by you and doesn't smile, doesn't say hello. Somebody maybe you're coming into work and the person doesn't say anything, and your automatic negative thought is, what did I do? Why aren't they talking to me? And then you go off on a whole story-making tangent that probably is completely false. And if you believe that, then you're going to have feelings associated with that. Behavior is going to result from that. And it could be the person had something else in their mind and didn't even notice you. They were so absorbed in a problem they were dealing with or whatever that they didn't even pay any attention to you. Has that ever happened to you? Have you had somebody say something to you in a particular tone and you took offense to it and you made it personal without asking, without clarifying? And then the automatic negative thoughts start, right? And you think, well, what's their problem? What did I do? And so that's an automatic negative thinking pattern that many of us default to, is that we make things personal when in actual fact, often, probably most of the time, what is happening has actually nothing to do with us. So that was number 2, taking it personally. The third kind of automatic negative thought is the blaming thinking. So it's a defensive kind of thinking when you need to have somebody or something to blame. There is an automatic, well, it wasn't me, or well, there was too much traffic, that's why I'm late, or what you can imagine what kind of thinking involves defense and blame. Always finding someone to blame for whatever happens instead of taking ownership of it. And in the book that I wrote, I talk a lot about accountability and about taking ownership for mistakes. And I think you gain an awful lot more respect when you can say, yeah, I messed up. I did that. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. I missed the deadline. I forgot. Whatever the issue is, if you own it, you accept it, you apologize, and you move on, you're going to have far more respect. As long as you're not doing it every 10 minutes, right? But as long as people can realize that you're not finding someone else or some other situation to lay the blame on. So that automatic negative thoughts, sometimes life is just the way it is. You know, I know sometimes people are mad because it's raining out and they're trying to blame the weather person or whatever. I mean, how ridiculous is that? It's wet. It's yucky out. It's not nice. There's nobody to blame. It's the way it is. It's life. So it's an interesting set of negative thoughts. And if this is you, pay attention. You know, where are you laying blame that makes no sense? And what can you own of what's happening in a day? So that's an interesting one. The fourth one is labeling. The labeling kinds of negative thoughts, automatic negative thoughts, or ants. And these are where you call people names, you categorize people, you stereotype people, you say that they're lazy or they're annoying or they're stupid or they can't drive or whatever the case is. It's where you label people. And this is a very negative one. And it goes along with the blaming one because it allows you to categorize somebody or something. And it's quite aggressive, actually. And so think about that. Are you labeling? Are you labeling people? Are you labeling situations in ways that are negative? And is there a way that you can question that and look at that and maybe have some compassion around that kind of thinking? So labeling is one. That is a big one. That's number 4. The fifth one is thinking with your feelings. I feel. I feel I am being stupid about this. I feel that I'm not smart enough. I feel that, and I know that that's a saying these days. People say, I feel like I want to go to the beach, or rather than I think. But an interesting thing about it is that feelings sometimes then become thinking. So if you're feeling unworthy or you're feeling not confident about something, then you may well become that because what you think becomes how you act. And so this is very powerful. These negative kinds of feelings can be very, very powerful and can translate into you doing or not doing things that you really actually want or say you want to do. So feelings, pay attention to how you feel and what you say you feel in your automatic negative thinking. Number 6 is, I call it the shoulding all over yourself. Should, SHOULD. This is the I should do X. I should do that. I should be doing this. I should not be doing this. This is the guilt, automatic negative thought that has to do with beating yourself up with guilt. And I did hear, or I read somewhere once, that whenever you say should, you are addressing someone else's agenda or someone else's expectations. So when you say, I should exercise this morning, who are you satisfying when you say that? Rather than saying, I want to feel healthy, I want to feel fit, and I look forward to being healthy and fit, and so I'm going to exercise this morning to work toward that goal. Rather than I should do this, because the second half is because if I don't, then I'm going to be blah, right? I'm going to be unfit. I'm going to be, not as good looking as I want to be, or whatever your thinking is in there. So when you should something, I should go visit so-and-so. I should call this person. Whose expectations are you meeting when you say the word should? And if it's a negative thought, how can you turn that around? We'll talk about turning things around in a minute. But should, listen for that word in your own thinking and stop and pay attention to it, because the question is, why? Why should you? And whose expectations are you not meeting if you don't? All right, number 7 is what they call fortune-telling thinking. Thinking that you are going to know what's going to happen even if you don't. So I am never going to be able to do X, whatever X is. I'm never going to be able to change jobs because it's too much work to think about. Or I'm never going to make this amount of money because I just can't. Or, like without leaving yourself open for any possibility. When you say things that, when you predict the future without actually knowing what might happen. And I hear this every once in a while. We're never going to be able to do that. We're never going to go do that. And my response is usually, why? How do you know? How do you know what might happen? But it's a very negative, automatic negative thought. I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm never going to do that. Or that's going to happen. We're going to go there and then this is going to happen and then it'll be terrible, right? Sometimes this goes along with fear and worry, that there's going to be a crash or whatever. It's all that whole string of things that you can get yourself into with your negative thinking and worry. Fortune telling. So those are the kinds of negative thoughts that have you thinking that you know what's going to happen, even if you don't actually, before it happens. So, we're going to go to that person's house for this birthday party and nobody's going to talk to us and it's going to be terrible. And we're going to stand around looking at the floor and not be able to have any conversations with anyone. And then we're going to come home and it's going to be the most boring time. So that would be an example. That leaves you open for nothing if you automatically decide what's going to happen before you get there. The 8th kind of automatic negative thought is the mind reading. This is almost like the fortune telling, only this is about what other people are going to think about something. She won't agree with that, or he will think that's ridiculous. Right? So have you heard yourself saying those kinds of things? And that has to do with your own self-confidence too, is that you assume you know what the other person is going to say or how they're going to react or what they're going to do. And it's an interesting observation of yourself if you can catch yourself doing it, because that person may not react exactly as you suspect. Now they might, which will reinforce your automatic negative thought, but they might not. And if we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, then maybe if you don't think that way, if you can catch yourself, then maybe you can be open to wondering and being curious about how they might react. So mind reading is an automatic negative thought that will sometimes prevent you from saying things or doing things because you think you already know how the other person is going to think. Right? So how many times has that happened to you? You imagine that you know what the other person is going to feel about a certain topic, or what they're going to do, or what they're going to think, or what they're going to say, and that prevents and changes your behavior, or you modify and change your behavior because you think you can read their mind. Fascinating, right? When are we doing that to ourselves? And how many opportunities have we lost because of it to say the right thing, do the right thing, move ourselves forward in our goals, open ourselves up to excitement and adventure? How often have we limited ourselves because of those kinds of thoughts? All right, now the last one is focusing on the negative, completely ignoring the silver linings and the curiosity and the possibility, and being negative. And I know that I've done this before. Somebody will say something, and instead of saying, oh, it's a wonderful day, I wonder what's going to happen, I will go to the negative. Well, I was sleeping in too long, or there was too much traffic, or, whatever it is, it's the negative default. And so where can you notice that you are defaulting to negativity rather than looking at the positive in a situation? All right, so those are 9 of the kinds or categories of automatic negative thoughts. That's a lot, people. That's an awful lot. But the idea here for the next part that I want to talk about is to just start paying attention. So how to kill ants. It sounds very dramatic and drastic, and I would not do that. I'm very loving of creatures, right? So no ants were actually harmed in the making of this podcast. But automatic negative thoughts, how do we stomp them out? How do we kill them? Well, the first thing I want to say is pay attention. When you notice something, then you can bring it to light and you can begin to diagnose it and you can begin to deal with it. So just pay attention. So for the rest of today, pay attention to what you're thinking, to the automatic thoughts that pop into your head, and assess them. Is that a positive one? Is that a negative one? If it's a negative one, when you notice a negative thought, figure out which kind of thought you are having. Which one of the 9 categories was this thought? Was it all or nothing cut and dried thinking? Was it taking something personally that maybe you didn't need to take personally? Was it blaming? Was it labeling? Was it thinking with your feelings? Was it using the word should? So was it the guilt thing? Was it fortune telling, thinking that you're knowing what's going to happen before it happens? Was it mind reading, assuming you're knowing how other people are going to think and react? Or was it a thought that was focused on negativity? Which one of those 9 thoughts was it? So you pay attention to it. That's the first thing. Figure out what category, what kind of thought it was, and then ask yourself the Byron Katie question. Now, I've talked about Byron Katie before. She's an author. She's a teacher, and I love her method. It's called The Work, and I've taken classes on the work. And if you haven't heard about her, look her up. She's got videos. She's been interviewed by anybody and everybody. She's got books that are fantastic. Look her up. And her questions around thoughts are very simple. Her first question is it true? So ask yourself the question about the thought, is it true? And then ask yourself the second question, is it really true? Is it true? And then when you answer that question, is it really true that I could never do X, whatever, fill in the blank? Because when you are completely sure that you couldn't do something, then you're not opening yourself up to any kind of possibility. Now, of course, in life, there are things that we can't do, and there are things that we shouldn't do, but there are possibilities too. So it's good to explore it a little bit. So the first thing is to pay attention to the thoughts. The second thing is when you notice a negative thought, figure out what category it fits into. The third thing is to ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it really true? And then reframe the thought is number 4. Reframe the thought. And what I mean by that is think about it in a different way. If your automatic negative thought is, I'm never going to get that job, what you could say instead is, I might get that job. I might be able to have that job. Now, you might not. It might not work out, but you might, which opens up the possibility and allows the rest of your thinking to follow a more positive, hopeful trajectory. I hate going to the gym might become, I look forward to feeling healthy and to fitting into those pants. Rather than I hate going to the gym, right? Turn it into a positive thought, reframe it. It's hard to do, but try it today. The next negative thought that pops into your head, the next negative thought you think. And if you just thought to yourself, I'm never going to remember to do that, stop and say to yourself, I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to make an effort to remember to do this, practice, and to stomp out some of my negative thoughts. I can't eat nuts or gluten or soy. I have serious allergies and intolerances, and dairy mostly makes me ill as well. So I have a real challenge with food when I go out. We do a lot of cooking at home. We have a lot of people in our house who have dietary issues, so we're cooking extraordinary feats of accommodation for everyone. And I'm really used to it, but I'm very allergic to some of it and intolerant to the rest. And often I say things like, I can't eat that. And I heard someone once say that even that is a negative thought because it implies a lack or a loss. And yeah, I miss bread, and I feel that I'm losing out when everybody else is getting mini donuts at the fair and I can't eat them. And while I'm sometimes sad that I have horrible reactions to these foods, there is so much out there that I can eat. And there's so much amazing food that really I don't have anything to complain about. And so I try to say, instead of I can't eat, blah, 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 I try to say I don't. I choose not to eat dairy because it doesn't make me feel good, rather than I can't eat dairy. Because as far as dairy goes, I could eat it. I just, because it won't make me die. It'll just make me feel horrible for the next few days. With nuts though, I can't eat those because I will go into anaphylactic shock. So, and soy, I get hives. So those are more serious. But with things like the gluten and dairy, I choose not to eat them because I feel so much better when I don't. So that's just a small, slight shift, but it makes me feel less like I'm missing out and more like I'm taking care of myself when I frame it that way. Do you see what I mean? It's even inside my head, I feel better about it. And that's what we're trying to do here. So in order to kill ants, automatic negative thoughts, I want you to pay attention to your thoughts. And when you notice a negative one, figure out what kind of thought you are having. Which of the 9 categories that I mentioned is it? Ask yourself if it's really true. Like, question the thought, interrogate it, right? Hello, thought. What business do you have being in my brain? And are you useful to me? Or are you hindering me in some way, right? And then reframe it in a way that is more positive and that is less negative. The 5th step is to do things like practice, and this could be 5, 6, and 7 steps, but I put them all together. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is paying attention to what's happening right in the moment instead of worrying about what might happen 10 minutes from now or what happened last week. Be in the moment and be practicing mindfulness. Practice gratitude. What are you grateful for right now? Rather than automatically going for the negative. What's positive in the situation? What is that silver lining? And the 3rd thing is to develop a meditation practice. And there are lots, we've had podcasts on that topic. There are lots of resources online for how to do that if you've never done that before. And these kinds of activities, these 3 things, mindfulness, gratitude, and meditation, have been scientifically proven to have neurological benefits that can help to alleviate negativity and anxiety and stress. They can prevent burnout. I have done a lot of work with burnout in the workplace, a lot of conversations and a keynote about it. And I've talked a lot about burnout in the workplace. And these 3 practices, if you can develop them, can actually help to rewire your brain and how it thinks and can prevent you from going down the road of burnout. So very, very important to try to develop practices like those ones. Now, of course, if your automatic negative thoughts are constant and they are overwhelming your life, you may need to seek professional help. Maybe a coach can help you if it's worrisome but not overtaking your life. So a coach might be able to do that, or you might need to go to a counselor or a therapist. There are some very, very helpful options out there for finding support and to find someone to help you to reframe and retrain that brain. You never, ever have to do it alone, and there's so much out there. There are so many options for you to go to that you don't need to be overwhelmed and overcome by your thinking. I also heard somewhere that the biggest addiction that human beings have is to our thinking. Isn't that interesting? The biggest addiction out there is to our thinking, and a lot of the time it's negative. So, friends, I hope this has helped you think about your thinking today. How meta is that? And that you will take the first step of noticing the words that you use, the thoughts that you think, and that you will begin to work with it. It takes practice, so don't be too hard on yourself, but you will begin to create new paths in the snow, to rewire your brain to be more positive, to have kinder and more gentle thoughts for yourself. And one of the things that is important to know is this isn't just for you. Our world needs this. The kinder, more gentle you can be with your own thinking and in regards to yourself, the kinder and more gentle a soul you will be in your workplace, in your home, in the world in general. And my goodness, I would say we need that right about now. We need you to do this work. We all need to do this work. I need to do this work. And we need to do this for the sake of the world. Now, if you would like someone to walk with you in support and guidance, I do have some coaching spaces open right now, and you can come over to CareersbyJenn.com. We can set up an initial clarity call to see if working together is the right fit, and then we can go from there. So CareersbyJenn.com, under the Work With Me tab, you'll see some options there. I have some single one-off sessions, and I have some longer-term offers that you can see there as well. So that is the show for today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you for being here. Until next time, stay healthy and stay safe and be good to each other. You've been listening to Careers by Jenn with Jen Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. You know, if every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.